Cale pressed his forehead against the cold stone wall outside the royal chamber, his calloused hands trembling. Inside, the kingdom's greatest healers muttered frantically over Princess Seraphina's dying body. 3 days had passed since the assassination attempt at the spring festival, and the poison coursing through her veins had defeated every remedy, every spell, every prayer. He was nobody, just a palace guard's son who'd worked his way up from stable hand to minor warrior in the princess's personal guard. But in those 2 years of service, he'd come to admire her more than he'd ever admit aloud. While other nobles saw commoners as tools, Seraphina saw people. She'd learned his name on the first day, asked about his mother's health, and once stayed up all night helping the kitchen staff prepare food for refugees when winter storms struck. Now she was dying, and the kingdom's finest minds stood helpless. "Nothing works," Chief Healer Marcellus announced, emerging from the chamber with defeat etched across his weathered face. "The poison is unlike anything in our records. It's as if it was designed specifically to destroy royal blood." King Aldrich stood rigid in the hallway, his crown seeming to weigh heavily on his silver hair. "There must be something, someone." "Your Majesty," Marcellus said quietly, "we should prepare for—" "No." The king's voice cracked like thunder. "I will not prepare for my daughter's death while she still draws breath." Cale's mind raced. He'd read every book in the palace library during his off hours, absorbing knowledge the way parched earth drinks rain. One ancient text had mentioned a desperate technique, that sometimes poison could be drawn out by pure, untainted blood offered willingly. It was considered myth, a tale from the age of dragons when magic ran thick in human veins. But myths were all they had left. "Your Majesty," Cale stepped forward before courage could abandon him. "I request permission to try something." Every eye in the corridor turned to him. Lord Cassius, the king's chief advisor, sneered. "The stable boy wishes to play healer. We don't have time for—" "Let him speak," King Aldrich interrupted, desperation making him willing to hear anyone. Cale straightened his shoulders. "There's an old technique. It may be nothing more than legend, but—" He met the king's eyes. "I wish to offer my blood." Freely given, willingly shared. The ancient texts say such an offering can sometimes draw out poison when nothing else can. Silence fell like a heavy blanket. Then Marcellus shook his head. "That's old magic, unpredictable. It could kill you both." "She's dying anyway," Cale said simply. "What's one more risk?" King Aldrich studied him for a long moment, seeing something in the young warrior's eyes that made him nod slowly. "Your loyalty honors us if you're willing." He gestured toward the chamber. Cale entered the princess's room, struck immediately by how small she looked in the grand four-poster bed. Seraphina's normally golden skin had turned grayish, and black veins spider-webbed beneath the surface. Her breathing came in shallow, ragged gasps. Marcellus followed reluctantly, preparing a small blade. "You understand this might not work, that you could die from blood loss or poison transfer." "I understand." Cale knelt beside the bed, taking Seraphina's cold hand in his. "Princess, I don't know if you can hear me, but hold on just a little longer." The healer made a precise cut across Cale's palm. Blood welled up, shockingly bright against his work-roughened skin. With Marcellus guiding him, Cale pressed his bleeding hand to Seraphina's pale lips, letting drops fall into her mouth. For a heartbeat, nothing happened. Then light exploded through the room. Golden radiance erupted from where Cale's blood touched Seraphina's lips, so brilliant that everyone shielded their eyes. The light swirled like liquid fire, splitting into two streams that wrapped around both Kale and the princess. Kale gasped as searing heat shot up his arm. He watched in shock as luminous symbols appeared on his skin, starting at his bleeding palm and racing up his forearm, ancient runes that seemed to burn with inner fire. The same marks blazed into existence on Serafina's arm, glowing through her nightgown sleeve. The black veins of poison in her face began to recede, drawn out like water evaporating in sunlight. Color flooded back into her cheeks. Her breathing deepened, steadied, became strong, and then her eyes opened, bright, alert, and fixed directly on Kale. "You," she whispered, her voice hoarse but alive. "I felt you calling me back." The light faded slowly, leaving the room in stunned silence. The marks on their arms remained, no longer glowing but clearly visible, intricate patterns that matched each other perfectly like two halves of a whole. King Aldrich pushed into the room, followed by half the court. They froze at the threshold, staring at the marks. "By the ancient powers," Marcellus breathed. "The Draken bond." "Impossible," Lord Cassius sputtered. "That bloodline died out centuries ago." But the elderly royal historian, Lady Everin, pushed through the crowd, her eyes wide. "The prophecy," she said, her voice trembling. "The prophecy of the Protector. When poison claims the royal heir and no cure can be found, one with dragon blood will offer freely what they hold most dear. By this bond shall the true Protector be known, and by this mark shall destinies be bound." Serafina sat up, examining the marks on her arm with wonder. "Dragon blood, but Kale is a warrior, a commoner." "Apparently not," Lady Everin said, moving closer to study the runes. "These marks only appear when ancient dragon lineage recognizes royal blood. Your ancestors were bonded with the dragon lords who protected this kingdom. Somehow, impossibly, this young man carries that bloodline." The room erupted into chaos. Nobles shouted over each other, some in excitement, others in clear alarm. "This changes everything," Duke Meridian declared. "He must be protected," another voice called. "Or controlled," someone muttered darkly. Kale felt the world tilting beneath him. This morning he'd been a simple warrior. Now these people spoke of dragon blood and ancient prophecies as if his entire life had been a lie. "Silence!" King Aldrich's command cut through the noise. He approached Kale slowly, studying the marks. "You saved my daughter's life. For that alone you have my eternal gratitude." He paused. "But these marks, Lady Everin, what do they mean?" The historian's expression was grave. "The Draken bond is more than just a healing. It's a soul-deep connection between protector and protected. In the old days, dragon-bonded guardians were the most powerful defenders the kingdom had. They could sense threats to their bonded, share strength in battle, and—" She hesitated. "And what?" Serafina asked softly. "They were considered sacred pairs, partners in every sense." The implications settled over the room like snow. Kale saw Lord Cassius's expression darken with calculation, while others looked at him with naked greed. "His blood cured the incurable," someone whispered. "Think what else it could do. Think what we could accomplish if we could harness it," another voice added. Kale's hand instinctively moved to his sword hilt. Serafina noticed, and her own expression hardened. "Anyone who speaks of harnessing my protector will answer to me personally," she said with steel in her voice. "He gave his blood freely to save my life. That makes him sacred by ancient law." "Princess," Lord Cassius said smoothly, "surely you see that such a valuable asset must be." "He is not an asset, he is a person, a hero." She stood, still weak but drawing on royal authority. And according to the prophecy Lady Everin just quoted, he is my destined protector, unless you wish to argue with prophecy itself, Lord Cassius. The advisor's jaw tightened, but he bowed. Of course not, Your Highness. King Aldrich raised his hand for silence once more. We will discuss the implications of this bond tomorrow. For now, my daughter needs rest, and this young man needs rooms befitting his new station, and protection of his own. Father, Seraphina began, not tonight, Sira. Tonight we celebrate your life. Tomorrow, his expression grew troubled. Tomorrow we deal with what comes next. By morning, news of Seraphina's miraculous recovery and Kale's dragon blood had spread through the palace like wildfire. But it was the whispers that worried Kale most, hushed conversations that stopped when he approached, calculating looks from nobles he'd never spoken to. He'd been moved to a guest suite near the royal family's wing, given new clothes and 2 guards outside his door. For protection, they said. But Kale couldn't shake the feeling he was being watched, assessed, measured for some purpose he didn't understand. A knock at his door revealed Seraphina herself, dressed in a simple blue gown, her personal guard trailing behind her. "Walk with me." They strolled through the palace gardens, maintaining proper distance, though Kale could feel something between them now, a warm awareness that hadn't existed before the bonding. "How are you feeling?" he asked. "Alive, thanks to you." She touched the marks on her arm gently. "I remember darkness and cold, and then your voice calling me back." She met his eyes. "Why did you do it, Kale? Risk your life for mine." He considered lying, offering some noble platitude, but something about the bond made deception feel wrong. "Because a kingdom without you would be a darker place. Because in 2 years you've shown more kindness to people like me than most nobles show in a lifetime. Because," he paused, "because I couldn't stand by and do nothing." Seraphina smiled, but it faded quickly. "You heard the whispers, didn't you, about your blood? Hard to miss. Half the court looks at me like I'm a weapon they want to wield. My father will protect you. Your father is king. He has to think about the kingdom first." Kale stopped walking, turning to face her fully. "Princess, I need you to understand something. Whatever this bond means, whatever these marks represent, I made my choice freely. No one owns me, and no one owns my blood. I would never. I know, but others might try." He glanced around the garden, noting how many gardeners had appeared since their walk began. "We need to be careful." As if summoning trouble with his words, a servant rushed toward them, face pale. "Your Highness, the king requests your immediate presence in the throne room. There's been a development." The throne room was packed with nobles and military commanders. King Aldrich sat rigid on his throne, a sealed letter in his hand. He looked like he'd aged 10 years overnight. "Father." Seraphina approached quickly, Kale a step behind. "The Shadowfen Alliance knows you're alive," the king said flatly. "This letter arrived an hour ago. They're demanding we hand over the dragon blood for study, or they'll consider your survival an act of war preparation." Kale's blood ran cold. The Shadowfen Alliance, 3 neighboring kingdoms that had been rivals for decades. They know about the bond already. "We have spies here," Lord Cassius said grimly. "Just as we have spies there." News this significant travels fast. "This is insane," Seraphina protested. "They can't demand we hand over a person." "They can demand anything they want," Duke Meridian said. "The question is what we do about it." "We refuse, obviously," General Thorne spoke up. "We don't negotiate with threats. And start a war," another noble challenged. "The Shadowfen Alliance combined has twice our military strength." Kale listened to them argue, feeling like a prize being fought over rather than a person. Then he noticed something. A servant in the corner, watching too intently, hand moving subtly toward his belt. Instinct screamed a warning. Down! Kale lunged toward Serafina just as the servant drew a crossbow and fired. The bolt meant for the princess buried itself in Kale's shoulder instead, spinning him around. The room erupted in chaos. Guards rushed the assassin, who smiled grimly and bit down on something. He collapsed, dead from poison, before they could reach him. Kale stumbled but stayed on his feet, his hand pressed to the bolt wound. The marks on his arm blazed with sudden heat, and he felt something flow through them, strength that wasn't entirely his own. On her own arm, Serafina's marks glowed in response. Kale, she caught him as he swayed. Someone get a healer. But even as Marcellus rushed forward, Kale watched in fascination as the wound began to close on its own, the poison from the bolt tip being pushed out by that same golden light that had saved Serafina. The Drakenbond marks pulsed once, twice, then settled. Incredible, Marcellus breathed. The bond protects you both. King Aldrich stood, his face pale but determined. Clear the room, everyone out except family and essential guards. When only a handful remained, he turned to Kale. That attack was coordinated with the letter. They wanted to prove they could strike at us whenever they choose. They want both of you her for leverage, you for your blood. Then what do we do? Serafina asked, still holding Kale's arm. The king looked between them at the matching marks that still glowed faintly. We prepare for war, and we make sure the prophecy's true, that Kale truly is the protector this kingdom needs. The emergency council convened in the secure war room deep beneath the palace. Kale sat at the table for the first time, no longer a mere warrior, but something else entirely, though what exactly remained unclear. The assassination attempt proves the Shadowfen Alliance has agents inside our walls, General Thorne said grimly. We need to assume everything we do is being watched. Then we use that, Lord Cassius suggested. Make them think we're capitulating, buy time to prepare. No, Kale surprised himself by speaking. All eyes turned to him. Apologies, but deception won't work. They know about the Drakenbond now. They've seen it protect the princess and heal me. Every moment we delay, they'll be preparing. The boy speaks sense, Duke Meridian admitted grudgingly. But what do you suggest? We're outnumbered. Kale looked at Serafina, feeling that pull between them, the bond that let him sense her emotions, her determination. Princess, when the light flowed between us during the healing, did you feel it? The power? She nodded slowly. Like lightning and starlight combined, it's still there, humming beneath my skin. Old dragon bonds weren't just about protection, Lady Everin said, understanding dawning. They were about shared power. The dragon lords could channel their strength through their bonded partners, making them exponentially more powerful. You're suggesting we weaponize the bond? King Aldrich asked carefully. I'm suggesting we learn what we're capable of, Kale corrected. Because ready or not, the enemy is coming. Over the next 3 days, while diplomats exchanged tense messages with the Shadowfen Alliance, Kale and Serafina trained under Lady Everin's guidance, using ancient texts to explore the Drakenbond's capabilities. They discovered that when Serafina was in danger, Kale could sense it across distances, a burning warning in his blood. That when they touched, they could share strength, endurance, even thoughts if they concentrated. The marks would flare when they worked together, creating shields of light that turned aside blades and arrows. But the most remarkable discovery came on the third night when assassins struck again. 5 of them, Shadowfin's elite, slipped past the increased guards and into Seraphina's chambers. They found Kale already there, warned by the bond's premonition, standing between them and the princess. "Just give us the girl," the lead assassin hissed. "You're outnumbered," Kale smiled grimly. "Actually, I'm not." He reached back and Seraphina took his hand. The Drakenbond marks exploded with light, and suddenly Kale moved with speed no human should possess. He could feel Seraphina's tactical mind guiding him, her awareness showing him angles he'd never have seen alone. She could sense his fighting instincts, lending him her magic to enhance every strike. Together, they were more than the sum of their parts. The assassins fell within minutes, alive but unconscious. When guards finally arrived, they found Kale and Seraphina standing back to back, still glowing faintly, looking like the ancient warrior pairs from legend. General Thorne stared in open amazement. By all the gods, the stories were true. News of the failed assassination and the bonded pair's power reached the Shadowfen alliance by morning. Their response came swiftly, a formal declaration of war unless Kale was surrendered within 3 days. "We fight," King Aldrich declared to the full court. "We don't trade lives, especially not the life of the man who saved my daughter and may be the key to our survival." But Lord Cassius stood, his expression calculating. "Your Majesty, perhaps there's another way. We've seen what the bond can do. If we could replicate it, extract the essence of Kale's blood and create more bonded warriors." "No," Seraphina's voice cut like a blade. "He is not a resource to be harvested. Princess, be reasonable. One bonded pair, no matter how powerful, cannot defeat 3 kingdoms, but an army of bonded warriors would require killing me to extract enough blood," Kale said quietly. "The texts Lady Everin found are clear. Dragon blood loses its power when taken by force. It only works when given freely in desperation to save someone the giver truly cares for. You can't manufacture that." "Then we're doomed," Duke Meridian said flatly. "Not necessarily." Lady Everin spread an ancient map on the table. "The Dragon Lords didn't fight alone. They had sanctuaries, places where the old magic was strongest. If the texts are right, there's 1 3 days' ride from here, the Crimson Peaks where the last Dragon Lord fell. If Kale and the princess could reach it, we'd have access to the full power of the old bonds," Kale finished, understanding. "We could call on the ancient defenders." "This is madness," Lord Cassius protested. "You'd send our princess into danger based on legends and myths." Seraphina stood tall. "I'd rather ride into danger fighting than sit here waiting to be captured. The Shadowfen Alliance wants us as weapons or hostages. I choose neither." King Aldrich closed his eyes, looking every year of his age. Then he opened them, resolved. "General Thorne, prepare our defenses. Hold them as long as you can. Lord Cassius, make it look like we're considering their terms. Buy time." He turned to Kale and Seraphine. "You two will ride for the Crimson Peaks tonight with a small guard. Find this sanctuary. Unlock whatever power the old bonds hold." His voice softened. "Come back to me, daughter, both of you." They rode through darkness, 10 loyal warriors surrounding Kale and Seraphina as they fled the palace through hidden passages. Behind them, the city lights faded. Ahead, mountains loomed against the stars. The Drakenbond hummed between them, stronger now that they'd accepted what they were to each other. Not just princess and protector, but partners in something ancient and powerful. On the second day, Shadowfen scouts found them. A running battle ensued through mountain passes, with Kale and Serafina fighting back to back, their bond making them devastating. But they were still just two people, and the enemy kept coming. By the third morning, they reached the Crimson Peaks, a valley of red stone where the air itself seemed to shimmer with old magic. At its center stood ruins of a great fortress, and at the fortress's heart, a pool of crystal clear water that glowed faintly gold. The Dragon's Heart, Lady Everin had called it, where the bonds were first forged. But they weren't alone. 100 Shadowfen soldiers blocked their path, led by a cold-eyed commander. "Surrender the dragon blood and the princess, and your guards may leave with their lives." Kale looked at Serafina. Through their bond, he felt her determination, her trust, her love. When had that happened? When had this become more than duty? "Together?" he asked softly. "Always," she replied. They dismounted and walked hand in hand toward the pool, ignoring the soldiers' shouts. Arrows flew, but the Drakenbond flared, turning them aside. Swords swung, but the bond's shields held. When they reached the water's edge, Kale and Serafina knelt together. The marks on their arms blazed like small suns as they placed their hands in the pool simultaneously. The world turned gold. Power erupted from the dragon's heart, not just their bond, but the bonds of every dragon-bonded pair who'd ever existed, their strength echoing across centuries. Kale felt wings he didn't have unfurl, heard roars of ancient protectors, felt the weight of 1,000 oaths to defend the worthy. When they opened their eyes, they stood wreathed in golden light that had taken the form of spectral dragon wings. The Shadowfen soldiers backed away in terror. "The prophecy," their commander whispered. "The true protector and the kingdom's hope united." "Leave," Serafina commanded, her voice resonating with ancient authority. "Tell your alliance that this kingdom is protected by more than armies. It is protected by bonds that predate their ambitions." The Shadowfen force broke and fled. News of what happened at the Crimson Peaks spread like wildfire. The Shadowfen alliance withdrew their declaration of war, suddenly uncertain. The spies and conspirators in the palace fled or surrendered, afraid of the bonded pair's power to sense deception. King Aldrich threw a celebration that lasted 3 days. But the greatest moment came in the quiet aftermath, when Kale and Serafina stood on the palace balcony, watching the sunrise. "The prophecy called you my destined bond," Serafina said softly. "The kingdom's true protector. I was just a stable boy who couldn't stand by," Kale replied. "You were always more than that. The dragon blood proved it." She took his hand, their marks glowing faintly in response. "But the bond, that's our choice, not prophecy, not destiny, us." Kale squeezed her hand gently. "Then I choose you every day, princess, partner, friend, whatever comes." "I choose you too," she whispered. "My protector, my equal, my heart." Below them, the kingdom woke to a new day, one where a commoner with ancient blood stood beside a princess, where old magic had returned to protect the worthy, and where a desperate act of sacrifice had changed everything. The Drakenbond marks on their arms glowed steady and true, a promise written in light that some bonds transcend station, some love transcends expectation, and some protectors give not because they must, but because they choose to. And in that choice lies the truest magic of all.